The massive crystal dome stretched high above the meeting hall like a giant soap bubble frozen in space. Inside, representatives from 847 different alien species sat in a perfect circle. Some had tentacles, others had wings, and a few looked like walking rocks. But all eyes were focused on the small group of humans sitting in the center. Ambassador Taemin Park sat perfectly still in his simple black suit. His gray hair was neat, his hands folded on the table. Next to him, Dr. Bo-Ra Kim studied her tablet while Fleet Admiral Woo-Jin Lee watched the aliens with calm eyes. The three humans looked tiny compared to the massive creatures around them. For 3 long months, the Galactic Council had been talking about what they called the human problem. The problem was simple. Humans were spreading too fast. In just 50 years, they had built colonies on 200 different star systems. They refused to use the technology the Council wanted them to use. Worst of all, they treated every alien species like equals, even the ones the Council considered primitive. Chancellor Vexthal, a tall blue creature with 4 arms, stood up and pointed one long finger at the humans. "These creatures must learn their place," he said in a voice like grinding metal. "They are young and foolish. We have guided the galaxy for 10,000 years. The insect queen Zakthara clicked her mandibles in agreement. Her thousands of compound eyes glittered as she spoke. Humans need proper training. They must be taught to behave correctly. Other aliens nodded and made various sounds of agreement. The Reptilian Federation representative hissed something about discipline. The Crystal Collective sang a harmonic agreement that sounded like wind chimes in a storm. Ambassador Taemin had heard all of this before. For 3 months, he had listened to species after species explain why humans needed to be controlled. They spoke about humans like pet dogs that had grown too big and needed to be put on a leash. Finally, Council Prime Veltar rose from his golden throne. He was ancient even by alien standards, with skin like old leather, and eyes that had seen civilizations rise and fall. In his hands, he held a thick document covered in alien writing. "Humans of Earth," Veltar said in a voice that echoed through the Great Dome. "We present to you the Integration Accord. This generous agreement will help your species find its proper place in the galactic order." The document floated through the air and landed on the table in front of Taemin. He picked it up and began to read. Dr. Bo-Ra Kim leaned over to look at it too. Admiral Woo-Jin just watched the aliens, his face showing nothing. The Integration Accord was not generous at all. It was a list of rules that would turn humanity into slaves. Humans could only live on 50 star systems instead of the 200 they already had. Every piece of human technology had to be approved by the Council before it could be used. Alien advisors would be placed on every human world to make sure humans behaved properly. Most insulting of all, humans would have to abandon their democratic governments and accept whatever rulers the Council chose for them. Taemin read the entire document while the Great Hall waited in silence. Some aliens shifted in their seats. Others made quiet sounds of impatience. A few smaller species looked worried, as if they knew this was wrong but were too afraid to speak up. When Taemin finished reading, he set the document down carefully on the table. He looked around the great circle of alien faces. Some looked expectant. Others looked smug. All of them seemed certain that humanity would sign the agreement because they had no choice. Slowly, Taemin stood up. The hall became completely silent. Even the smallest creatures stopped moving. 847 different species waited to see what the human would do. After careful consideration, Taemin said in perfect galactic standard language, "Humanity respectfully declines this offer." The silence stretched for exactly 3 seconds. Then the hall exploded into chaos. Aliens jumped to their feet, their voices creating a storm of sound. The crystalline collective's harmony turned into angry discord. The reptilian representative's hiss became a roar. Chancellor Vexthal's 4 arms waved wildly as he shouted something about human arrogance. Through all the noise, Taemin remained standing calmly. He waited for the storm to die down just enough for his voice to be heard. Furthermore, he continued, his words cutting through the alien voices like a knife. "Humanity is withdrawing from all Council programs and agreements, effective immediately." The chaos stopped as suddenly as it had started. The aliens stared at the human in shock. Withdraw from the Council? No species had ever withdrawn from the Council. Once you joined, you stayed joined. That was how things worked. Dr. Bo-Ra Kim stood up and gathered her papers. Admiral Woo-Jin rose from his chair and straightened his uniform. The 3 humans began walking toward the exit. "You cannot simply leave," Chancellor Vexthal shouted. The Council decides these matters. Taman paused at the door and turned back. His face was still calm, but there was something in his eyes that made even the largest aliens take a step back. The Council decides nothing for humanity, he said quietly. We came here hoping to be partners. Instead, you offered us chains. We choose freedom. Admiral Wu Jin cleared his throat. All human ships will be leaving Council space within 72 hours, he announced. We thank you for your hospitality. The three humans walked out of the Great Hall, their footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. Behind them, 847 alien species sat in stunned shock. Council Prime Veltar was the first to recover. This is impossible, he muttered. Species do not leave the Council. The galaxy needs guidance, order, structure. But as the minutes passed and no human ships changed course, a terrible realization began to dawn on the assembled aliens. The humans were serious. They were actually leaving. Chancellor Vexthol activated his communication device and tried to contact the human fleet. The response was polite but firm. We are no longer part of Council operations. Please direct all future communications through diplomatic channels. What diplomatic channels? Vexthol sputtered. You just destroyed our diplomatic relationship. But the humans did not answer. Their ships continued on course toward the edge of Council space, and beyond that, into the vast unknown regions that the Council had never bothered to explore. In the Great Crystal Dome, 847 species sat in uncomfortable silence, each one beginning to wonder what they had just lost. The humans had been useful. Their ships were fast and reliable. Their trade was fair and honest. Their technology was different but effective. Their colonies were peaceful and prosperous. More importantly, their presence had meant something. In a galaxy ruled by ancient powers and rigid hierarchies, humanity had been the one voice that insisted everyone deserved respect. Now that voice was gone, and the galaxy suddenly felt much darker and smaller than it had just 1 hour before. Outside the station, human ships disappeared one by one into the black void between stars, carrying with them something the Council had never valued, but would soon desperately miss: hope. 3 days passed since the humans left. At first, the aliens thought everything would continue as normal. After all, humans were just one species among many. How much difference could their absence really make? The answer came quickly and hit hard. On the mining world of Xerion 7, Counselor Drakmor stood in an empty shipping bay and stared at rows of cargo containers that should have been moving. The containers held rare metals needed by dozens of worlds across the galaxy. They sat there like sleeping giants, waiting for ships that would never come. Drakmor's assistant, a nervous creature with 6 legs and too many eyes, approached with a data pad. Sir, the Altarian Transport Guild says they can take the cargo, but it will take 6 months instead of 2 weeks. 6 months? Drakmor's voice echoed in the empty bay. The factory worlds need these materials now. Their production lines will shut down. The human ships were faster, sir, and cheaper, and the assistant hesitated. And what? And they actually showed up when they said they would. Drakmor realized with growing horror that 40% of all shipping in this sector had been handled by human companies. He had never paid attention to this fact before. Human efficiency had been invisible until it disappeared. On the research station orbiting Kepler 442b, Dr. Yethris faced a different kind of disaster. The tall, blue-skinned scientist stood in his laboratory, staring at medical equipment that had gone silent. For 2 years, he had been working with Dr. Hai-Jin Choi from the Human Research Consortium to develop a cure for Andromedan cancer, a disease that killed millions across 12 different species every year. They had been so close. The cure was almost ready, but the final testing required human biocompatibility data, and that information was locked in human databases that Dr. Choi had encrypted before leaving. Dr. Yethris sent message after message to the human research stations, but got the same response every time. We are no longer accepting communications from Council space. In his laboratory, samples of the almost finished cure began to spoil. Without human data, the medicine would remain incomplete. Millions would continue to die from a disease that could have been cured. The crisis spread to every corner of Council space. On the trade hub of New Babylon, merchant Krillvex discovered that half his suppliers had vanished overnight. The humans had been making everything from medical devices to entertainment systems to simple household items. They were products that the advanced alien species had stopped producing themselves years ago, preferring to focus on what they called higher pursuits. Now Krillvex's shelves sat empty. His customers, creatures from dozens of different worlds, demanded products he could no longer provide. The other alien manufacturers had shut down their basic production lines long ago. It would take months to restart them if they could remember how, but the strangest part was the silence. Human ships still moved through space, but they no longer talked to anyone outside their own species. They responded to distress calls. Humans would never ignore someone in danger. But they no longer participated in galactic communication networks. They shared no information, coordinated no activities, offered no help beyond basic emergency aid. The galaxy had become a lonelier place almost overnight. Fleet Commander Zurgoth brought the most disturbing news to an emergency council meeting. The massive reptilian warrior stood before the assembled aliens, his scales dull with worry. "The humans are not simply hiding," he reported. "Our long-range sensors show they are moving through regions of space we do not use. Old star systems with dead planets and empty asteroid fields. Places we marked as worthless centuries ago." Chancellor Vexithul leaned forward in his chair. "Are they lost? Wandering aimlessly?" "No, sir. They move with purpose. They know exactly where they are going. Our ships cannot follow because we do not have navigation data for those regions. How can they navigate space we cannot?" Zurgoth's answer chilled the council chamber. "We believe they have maps we do not possess, sir. Very old maps." Dr. Lethandra, the chief science advisor, pulled up star charts on the main display. The human ship's paths appeared as dotted lines moving through regions marked as unexplored or dead space. "If you look at the pattern," she said, pointing at the display, "they are not exploring. They are following established routes. Routes that are not in our databases." The implications were disturbing. How could humans, who had only been in space for 200 years, have navigation data for regions the Council had never properly mapped? Meanwhile, reports came in from the independent worlds, planets that were not directly under Council control. These worlds had a different story to tell. Their trade with humans continued as normal. In fact, it was increasing. The Freeport of Liberty Station reported a 300% increase in both trade volume and immigration requests. New Geneva, an independent colony, announced it was expanding its shipyards to handle increased human business. Dozens of other free worlds reported similar good news. The message was clear. Humans had not stopped trading or building or growing. They had simply stopped doing business with the Council. Captain Min-Ki Yang of the independent freighter Star Wanderer summed it up during a broadcast from Liberty Station. The humans did not disappear. The Council made itself irrelevant. His words spread quickly through non-Council space, and suddenly thousands of worlds began questioning why they needed the Council at all. If they could trade freely with humans and other species without Council oversight, why submit to Council rules? The economic numbers told the story. In just 3 months, trade in Council space dropped by 30%. Manufacturing fell by 20%. Medical research slowed to a crawl. Transportation became unreliable and expensive. But in the independent sectors, the economy boomed. New trade agreements appeared every day. Research projects that the Council had delayed for decades suddenly moved forward. Transportation improved as human companies redirected their services to worlds that welcomed them. Admiral Kithara, the Council's chief military advisor, brought the most frightening news of all. Her scouts had detected massive energy signatures in the void regions where humans were traveling. "Something is being built out there," she reported to the emergency session. "Something large. Energy readings suggest construction on a scale we have never seen before." "What kind of construction?" asked Council Prime Veltar. "We do not know. Our ships cannot get close enough to investigate. The humans have established some kind of perimeter. They do not attack our scouts, but they make it clear that we are not welcome." The Council chamber fell silent as the aliens contemplated this news. The humans were not just hiding in empty space. They were building something, but what? And why in regions the Council considered worthless? Dr. Velthos, a medical researcher, provided another piece of the puzzle. "I have been analyzing supply manifests from the last human cargo shipments before they left. The materials they were buying, they are consistent with massive construction projects, habitat construction, terraforming equipment. population life support on a scale that could support billions. The terrible truth began to dawn on the assembled aliens. The humans were not planning to come back. They were not hiding temporarily. They were building an entirely separate civilization in regions of space the Council had ignored. And based on the energy readings and material shipments, they were building something that would make the Council look small and primitive by comparison. In the crystal dome where this crisis had begun, 847 species sat in growing panic as they realized what they had lost. They had not just rejected humanity as a partner. They had driven away the most innovative, productive, and cooperative species in the galaxy. Now that species was building something wonderful in the darkness between stars, and the Council was not invited to see it. 6 months had passed since the humans walked away, and the galaxy was falling apart. The hegemony worlds were the first to break. These proud aliens had built their entire economy around efficiency and perfect timing. Every factory, every shipping route, every supply chain was designed to work like clockwork. But that clockwork had depended on human shipping companies to move goods quickly and reliably. Now, with only traditional alien ships available, everything took 3 times longer. Factories ran out of materials and shut down. Food spoiled in cargo holds. Medical supplies arrived too late to save lives. The perfect system collapsed like a house of cards. Councillor Brixtel, leader of the hegemony worlds, sat in his office and stared at reports of economic disaster. His pride had been legendary throughout the galaxy. The hegemony had never asked anyone for help. They were too advanced, too sophisticated to need assistance from younger races. But now, with his worlds facing starvation and industrial collapse, Brixtal swallowed his pride and sent a secret message to Earth. Terms negotiable. Please respond. The message came back 3 days later with 2 simple words. Recipient unknown. The humans had blocked all communications from Council space. Even desperate pleas for help disappeared into the electronic void. On the medical research station orbiting Tau Ceti, Dr. Velthos faced a nightmare. Rigelian fever had broken out across 15 different worlds. The disease was spreading fast, killing thousands every day. Normally, this would not be a crisis. The humans had been developing a cure for months, working with their strange but effective medical techniques. But the human research team had taken all their data with them when they left. Dr. Velthos and his alien colleagues found themselves trying to cure a plague with incomplete information and outdated methods. Every day brought more death, and every day the cure seemed further away. Dr. Velthos sent desperate messages to every human medical facility he could find. The responses were always the same, polite but firm refusals. We are unable to provide assistance to Council territories at this time. Thousands died while the cure sat locked in human databases that the aliens could not access, but the most disturbing news came from the independent worlds. While Council space struggled and failed, the free planets were experiencing a golden age. Liberty Station had become a major trading hub almost overnight. Captain Sora Min, commander of the station, reported that trade volume had increased by 400%. We can barely handle all the business, she told the galactic news networks. Ships are lined up for days waiting for docking space. The planet New Geneva had signed exclusive trade agreements with human companies. Their governor, a former council member named Jae Ho-an, announced that his world's economy had grown more in 6 months than in the previous 10 years combined. The secret is simple, Governor An explained during a public broadcast that reached across the galaxy. We treat humans as equals and partners. They respond with fairness and prosperity. His words sent shockwaves through Council space. Dozens of worlds began questioning why they needed Council membership at all. If independence brought prosperity while Council membership brought stagnation, the choice seemed obvious. The exodus began slowly. First, a few outer rim colonies declared independence from the Council. Then entire star systems started breaking away. The Council's response was always the same: threats and warnings about the dangers of leaving galactic civilization. But the threats rang hollow when the independent worlds were clearly thriving, while Council worlds struggled. Admiral Kythera brought increasingly disturbing reports to the emergency council sessions that now happened every day. Her deep space monitoring stations were detecting energy signatures that defied explanation. The construction in the void regions has accelerated, she reported. We are seeing power outputs comparable to small stars. Whatever the humans are building, it is massive beyond our comprehension. The partial data they managed to gather was even more frightening. Long-range sensors detected what appeared to be artificial gravity wells, massive metal structures, and energy patterns that suggested entire worlds were being built from scratch. They are not just building colonies, Admiral Kithara explained to the terrified council. They are constructing a parallel civilization. Dr. Jinwoo Park, a human-born analyst who had chosen council citizenship years earlier, worked desperately to understand what his former people were doing. He had access to old human databases and technical manuals that other aliens could not read. What he found in the shipping manifests and construction plans made him go pale with shock. They are building artificial worlds, he told the emergency session. Rotating habitats that can house millions of people. Space elevators connecting dead planets to orbital manufacturing stations. They are turning worthless star systems into paradise. The implications were staggering. While the Council had always focused on conquering and controlling existing worlds, humans were creating new ones. They were building living space where none had existed before. How is this possible? Asked Chancellor Vexthul. Such construction would require technology and resources beyond anything we have seen. Jin Woo pulled up holographic displays showing human supply chains and manufacturing data. They are not using our methods. Human engineering is different. They build up instead of taking over. They create instead of conquering. The displays showed something that chilled the Council to their bones. The humans were not just building a few new colonies. They were constructing an entire network of connected worlds and stations. A civilization that could exist completely independently of any natural planets. According to these projections, Jinwoo said quietly, they will have more living space and industrial capacity than the entire Council within 5 years. The news got worse. Intelligence reports suggested that humans were recruiting colonists not just from Earth, but from independent worlds throughout the galaxy. Species that had never achieved Council membership were joining the human project. Refugees from Council worlds were finding ways to reach human space. The galaxy was choosing sides and the Council was losing. Trade analyst Minho Jung provided the final devastating statistics. Based on energy outputs, construction materials, and population movements, the humans are not building a competing civilization. They are building a replacement civilization. He displayed charts showing economic and population flows. Like water flowing downhill, everything was moving away from Council space toward the human construction zones. Within 10 years, Minho concluded, the Council will control less than half the galaxy's population and resources. The humans will control the rest plus everything new they are building. The great crystal dome that had once echoed with proud alien voices now carried only the sounds of fear and confusion. 847 species who had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years were discovering that their reign was ending. And it was ending not through conquest or war, but through simple irrelevance. The humans had offered partnership and been rejected, so they had built something better elsewhere. Now, as Council worlds collapsed and independent worlds prospered, the terrible truth became clear. The galaxy no longer needed the Council, but the Council desperately needed the galaxy. And the galaxy was slipping away one world at a time. In the void regions between stars, artificial suns began to shine as humans and their allies built the future that the Council had refused to allow them to share. The breakthrough came from the most unexpected place, an old dig site on a forgotten world at the edge of Council space. Dr. Hanul Song knelt in the red dirt of Kepler 186f, carefully brushing dust from a metal plate covered in strange symbols. She had been working on this archaeological site for 3 years, long before the humans left Council space. The ruins were ancient, older than any civilization the Council had records of. But today, something was different. As Hanul cleaned the metal plate, she recognized some of the symbols. They looked familiar, but she could not place them until she pulled out her translation tablet and compared them to the Galactic language database. Her hands began to shake. The symbols matched entries in the human language archives. Not modern human writing, but something much older, something that should not exist. Hanul activated her communication device with trembling fingers. Dr. Yethris, I need you to see this immediately. Dr. Yethris arrived at the dig site within hours, his blue skin pale with curiosity and concern. Hanul led him to the metal plate and showed him her findings. "These symbols," she said, pointing at the ancient writing, "they are human. But the dating puts this site at 200,000 years old." Dr. Yethra stared at the metal plate in confusion. "That is impossible. Humans have only been in space for 200 years, not 200,000. But as they dug deeper, they found more evidence. Stone tablets with star charts that showed systems humans had recently colonized. Metal tools designed for human hands. Most disturbing of all, genetic material preserved in crystalline storage devices. Dr. So Young Lim arrived from her laboratory on the nearby research station. The human geneticist had chosen to remain in council space when her people left, hoping to continue her scientific work. Now, as she analyzed the ancient genetic samples, her face went white with shock. "This is human DNA," she confirmed to the emergency archaeological team that had gathered at the site. "Not just similar to human, identical to modern human genetic patterns." The implications hit everyone at the same time. The primitive species that the Council had been trying to guide and control were not newcomers to the galaxy. They were natives returning home. Dr. Yethris contacted the Council immediately. Within days, the greatest archaeological team in galactic history had descended on Kepler 186F. What they found changed everything the Council thought. They knew about galactic history. The ruins were not just human. They were the remains of a vast civilization that had once spanned the galaxy. Star charts carved in stone showed shipping routes that connected thousands of systems. Technical diagrams described technology that made current Council science look primitive. Most shocking of all, historical records told a story the Council had never heard. 200,000 years ago, humans had been the dominant species in the galaxy. They had guided younger races, sharing technology and knowledge. They had built a galactic civilization based on cooperation and mutual growth, but something had gone wrong. The records were incomplete, damaged by time, but the pattern was clear. The human empire had fallen not to outside enemies, but to internal strife. Different human factions had disagreed about how to treat other species. Some wanted to guide and control, others wanted to share and cooperate. The disagreement had led to civil war. The war had lasted for thousands of years, devastating human civilization and leaving the galaxy in chaos. In the end, the surviving humans had made a terrible choice. They abandoned their empire and retreated to a single world, Earth, giving up their technology and starting over as primitives. They did this to let the galaxy develop naturally, without human interference. Admiral Mordak, the Council's chief intelligence officer, pieced together the final parts of the puzzle. "The void regions the humans are using," he announced to an emergency council session. "They are not uncharted. They are ancient human shipping lanes." He displayed star charts showing the paths human ships had taken when leaving council space. They matched perfectly with the trade routes found in the ancient ruins. The humans know exactly where they are going, because they have been there before. They are returning to their ancestral territories. The revelation sent shockwaves through the council chamber. Everything they had believed about galactic history was wrong. The Council had not guided the galaxy for 10,000 years. They had simply filled the void left when humans voluntarily stepped aside, and now the humans were back. Dr. Han-Yul Song made the most disturbing discovery in the deepest levels of the ruins. She found what appeared to be a historical record, carved in stone and preserved for eternity. The record told the story of humanity's choice to abandon their empire. "We have tried to guide the younger races," the ancient text read, "but guidance becomes control and control becomes oppression. We have become what we sought to prevent. Therefore we choose exile. We go to the small blue world and begin again. Perhaps in time the galaxy will learn to govern itself with wisdom." The message was clear. Humans had faced the same choice the Council now faced. Rule through force or step aside and let others choose their own path. Humans had chosen exile. The Council had chosen control. But there was more. Deep scan analysis revealed that the ancient ruins were not just archaeological sites. They were way stations and supply depots, still functional after 200,000 years. Automated systems waited patiently for the return of their creators. "That is how they are building so fast," realized Dr. Jinwoo Park. "They are not starting from nothing. They are reactivating an ancient infrastructure that has been waiting for them." The scope of human preparation became clear. The void regions the Council had considered worthless were actually the sites of ancient human installations. Automated factories waited in cold storage. Terraforming equipment lay dormant in asteroid fields. Entire star systems had been prepared for recolonization millennia ago. The humans had not just walked away from the council. They had gone home. Captain Sung-Ho Kang, a human who had remained in council space as a diplomatic observer, finally broke his silence. "You want to know why we left?" he asked the assembled aliens. "Because we tried this before. 200,000 years ago. We thought we knew better than everyone else. We thought guidance was the same as partnership." He gestured to the archaeological evidence displayed around the chamber. "It ended in war and suffering, so our ancestors chose to give up everything and start over. They hoped that when they returned, they would find a galaxy that had learned to cooperate instead of dominate." Captain Kang's voice carried the weight of ancient sadness. "But when we came back, we found the same old patterns: hierarchy, control, the strong ruling the weak. So we made a different choice this time." "What choice?" asked Council Prime Veltar. "We chose to build something better elsewhere, instead of trying to fix something that does not want to be fixed." The council chamber fell silent as the aliens contemplated the magnitude of their mistake. They had not just rejected a young species seeking membership. They had rejected the galaxy's original civilization, returning home after an exile of 200,000 years. And that civilization was now building something that would make the council look like children playing with toys. In the void regions between stars, ancient machines awakened and began to sing. The galaxy's true inheritors had come home at last. 2 years had passed since humanity walked away from the council, and the galaxy had changed beyond recognition. The great crystal dome of the council station no longer echoed with proud alien voices debating the future. Instead, it held the whispered conversations of desperate leaders watching their civilization crumble. Council worlds faced economic collapse, medical crises, and the constant drain of populations fleeing to independent systems. The independent worlds, meanwhile, thrived under human partnership. The message was clear: cooperation brought prosperity, while hierarchy brought decay. Then, without warning, a single human ship appeared at the edge of council space. The ship was unlike anything the aliens had seen before. Its hull seemed to shimmer with energy, and its size dwarfed even the largest council vessels. Yet it moved with the grace of a small fighter, defying every law of physics the council understood. Admiral Kithara's fleet surrounded the human ship, but their weapons targeting systems could not lock on. The ship's technology was generations beyond anything in council space. "Council Station, this is Admiral Su Jin Han of the Human Alliance vessel Unity," came a calm voice over the communication channels. "I request permission to address the Galactic Council." The word request sent shockwaves through the station. The humans were asking for permission, not demanding entry as the council had expected. After 2 years of silence, they were being polite. Council Prime Veltar, aged even more by 2 years of crisis, granted permission with a trembling voice. "Permission granted, Admiral Han. You may dock." The Unity docked with impossible smoothness at the station's main port. Admiral Su Jin Han stepped out alone, wearing a simple blue uniform with no weapons. She was a small woman with graying hair and calm eyes that had seen the birth and death of worlds. She walked through the corridors of the station with quiet dignity, while alien security forces watched nervously. The humans could have sent an invasion fleet, but instead they had sent one middle-aged woman with a message. The great crystal dome fell silent as Admiral Han entered. 847 alien species watched as she walked to the center of the chamber, where humans had once sat as petitioners. Now she stood as an equal, representing a civilization that had surpassed them all. "Honorable representatives," Admiral Han began, using the ancient protocols that the Council had forgotten were human innovations. "I bring greetings from the Human Alliance and an invitation to join the galactic community as equal partners." The words hit the assembly like a physical blow. Join them? The humans were inviting the Council to join their organization? Chancellor Vexthul found his voice first. "You speak as if you have authority over galactic affairs. The Council has governed this galaxy for 10,000 years. Admiral Han smiled gently. "And before that, we governed it for 50,000 years. Before our exile to Earth, before our return, before this moment when we offer you a choice." She gestured, and holographic displays filled the chamber. The images showed the human construction projects in the void regions, but the scale was impossible to comprehend. Entire star systems had been transformed into gardens of orbital habitats. Artificial worlds larger than planets spun slowly in the darkness, their surfaces covered with cities and forests. The galaxy has room for everyone, Admiral Han continued, but not room for systems that divide people into rulers and subjects. The terms she offered were simple, but devastating to council pride. The hierarchical council system would be dissolved. All species would have equal representation in a new democratic assembly. Technology would be shared freely in both directions. Trade and movement would be open to everyone. Most importantly, no species would rule over another. These terms are unacceptable, declared Chancellor Vex Thule. The council maintains order. Without hierarchy, there would be chaos. Admiral Han's response was patient but firm. We tried hierarchy once before. 200,000 years ago, we thought we knew better than everyone else. It ended in war and exile. This time we choose a different path. She activated another display showing economic data from across the galaxy. The numbers told a story that made the council species squirm in their seats. In the 2 years since we separated, the Alliance territories have seen 400% growth in prosperity. Council space has declined by 60%. The galaxy has already chosen. We are simply offering you the chance to choose as well. Dr. Bo-Ra Kim, now serving as the Alliance's chief science coordinator, stepped forward with additional data. Her research showed that the old council system was not just economically inefficient, it was scientifically stagnant. In 2 years of free cooperation, Dr. Kim explained, we have made more scientific breakthroughs than the council achieved in the previous century. When species work together as equals, innovation flourishes. The evidence was overwhelming: medical advances that could extend life for all species, transportation technology that made interstellar travel as easy as crossing a city, energy systems that could power entire civilizations without depleting resources. All of this had been developed through cooperation between humans and the species that had joined their alliance. And if we refuse your generous offer? Asked Chancellor Vexthul, though his voice lacked its former authority. Admiral Han's expression remained gentle but resolute. Then you continue as you are, and we continue as we are. But understand, the species joining our alliance are not doing so because we force them. They choose cooperation because it brings freedom and prosperity. Through the station's viewports, the council could see proof of her words. Ships from dozens of species worked alongside human vessels. Many of these species had never achieved council membership, considered too primitive by council standards. Now they operated technology that made council ships look obsolete. The voting process took 3 days. The debate was fierce, with some species clinging to the old ways while others embraced the promise of equality. In the end, the numbers told the story. 423 species voted to dissolve the council and join the human alliance. 289 voted to maintain the old system. 135 abstained. As the results were announced, the Great Crystal Dome began to change. Ancient human technology, dormant for millennia, awakened in response to the democratic will of the assembly. The rigid circular seating arrangement dissolved, replaced by a flexible configuration where all species could participate as equals. The Galactic Council was dead. The Galactic Assembly was born. Ambassador Taemin Park, the man who had walked away from the council 2 years earlier, returned to serve as the first speaker of the assembly. His words to the galaxy marked the beginning of a new age. We do not walk away anymore, he said, his voice carrying to every corner of civilized space. We walk together. In the void regions that had once been considered worthless, artificial suns blazed with the light of a new civilization. Humans and their partners built worlds where none had existed before, creating homes for billions of beings who sought freedom over security, cooperation over domination. The species that chose to remain separate were not punished or abandoned. Trade continued, aid was offered, and the door remained open for future cooperation. The Alliance had learned from humanity's ancient mistake. True strength came not from forcing unity, but from making it so attractive that others chose it freely. Admiral Su Jin-han stood on the observation deck of the Unity as it prepared to leave Council Station, now Assembly Station. Through the viewport, she could see construction ships already beginning to expand the facility to accommodate true democratic representation. Captain Minjai Cho joined her at the viewport. Do you think they will learn, Admiral? Admiral Han smiled as she watched human and alien ships working together to build something better than either could achieve alone. They already have, Captain. The hardest lesson of all, that real power comes not from standing above others but from lifting them up. In the distance, the first of the new worlds sparkled like jewels against the darkness of space. Each one was a testament to what could be achieved when different species worked together as equals, building paradise in places that had seemed empty and worthless. Humanity had returned to the galaxy not as conquerors, but as gardeners, helping to plant seeds of cooperation that would grow into forests of prosperity. The age of hierarchy was ending. The age of partnership had begun. And across the galaxy, beings who had never dared to dream of equality looked up at the stars and saw hope shining in the darkness.